Hey everyone, can you hear me okay? Let me know in the comments if you can all hear me. Trying to work without my mouse, which isn't working as well. All right. Welcome to Surviving Together. In a little bit, we should be surviving the cracks. I just need to connect up with Jen Marie. But first, let us see who is all here. Welcoming back our mod, Todd Matrix Roberts. Thank you so much for being here and modding today. If you can't, there's other mods here. Misha's here right now, and as soon as Jen gets here, she's got mod capabilities too, so no worries, all right? You can drop off right now. Misha's here, and Jen will be here shortly, okay? So why don't you just hang out and listen. If you feel better and want to pop on with us, pop back up, but otherwise we're just gonna have you back on some other time, okay? All right. So how is everybody this afternoon? Hi, Shannon. Janet, good to see you. Shannon and Sandy, thank you for being here. Tree Hugging Buddhist, so lovely you joined us. Thank you so much. Okay. Everyone can hear me okay, correct? I'm not quite at my usual setup. I'm at a friend's house, and I think that hoping that I'm not blending into the background too terrible. Perfect. Thank you, Shannon. Let's see. Did I miss anybody? Tell me if I did. I think I said hi to everyone, but if I missed somebody, oh, I'm so sorry. Izzy, hi. No, I didn't say hi specifically to you. Anik, welcome. Thank you for being here. You guys, maybe by this time next Saturday, we will have a trailer up. So after the live ends, there'll be some graphics that will come up, brought to you by our very own Awakened by the Looking Glass Reflection. They look great now. We're just changing a few things, and we are one step closer to having a whole intro to outro show. Very excited about that. So today's show in general is originally Jen and I had thought about, Nickelodeon had hit, and we thought, well, we should, talk about that from a male survivor standpoint. And then the whole Sean Combs raid happened, and we thought, oh my gosh, so here's another thing. So let's do music and film industry and, male sexual assault survivors within that. And we spoke a little bit more during the course of the week and felt that though talking about it within the specific industries is something we do want to talk about, and maybe we'll borrow a little bit of Wednesday to do so, but we really wanted to focus a little bit more just on talking about male survivors. If anybody has anything, input and anything to say, please just put comment in big caps or question in big caps, anything of that nature. I'm going to try to make sure that I represent everything correctly. That goes for, Todd, if you just are listening, if I say something and you need to correct me, please do. Just from a guy's perspective, or anybody else out there who's listening who feels the need to let me know something. I watched a lot of interviews with male survivors. Now, obviously, I am not a male survivor, and this is something I thought would be really interesting. Todd had offered to be on the show, and so if he's feeling better, we'll have him on. But otherwise, we'll do it another time, because I had been thinking about, well, I really wanted to do a male versus female trauma, right? We did the SA versus, prison trauma, SA trauma, with Tommy. And really we came down to it, even something as, can be as differential as that. It really comes down to the trauma. The same can be said for male versus female. However, I think that you will agree after today, I don't really think anyone's going to dispute it either, how much more difficult it is for males to disclose a sexual assault. The average age-ish range, just for disclosure in general, is in the early 50s. That's for male and female, from what I've read. Also, side tangent, just to let you know. So in the description below, I have linked any of the sources where I had some major information that I took away from a particular interview or lecture. So I've linked that down below, as well as there's some different organizations who are resources for male survivors. There's one for the US, there's one for Canada, and there's one for Australia. So I don't have 1 in 6 was started for Canada. I do believe it includes the US now as well. So that's, I think, a resource for both. 3 very outstanding nonprofits that have devoted themselves to taking care of male sexual assault survivors and seeing that they have resources that have been available to women for a while now. And it really stunned me in doing the research for this video how much the industry, the sexual assault trauma industry, treatment area is geared towards women. Now, yes, majority are women, are girls, but how often a child or person or adult is not used? Instead, it's, a male or female thing, just to include the men within the generalized literature. So having it just say adult or having it say child instead of, just geared towards one. Also, there's, and I think it depends a little bit on where you are, but there's some barriers to treatment for men. I want to just stick on the resources for a moment. And one of them can be speaking to another man about something like this. It could be a trigger for some men. And so having a female therapist to speak to is better. There are some females who prefer not to work in this type of area, just as there's some other areas that, some people may not like to work in, aren't specialized in, trauma being one of them. And I'm sorry, I just had this thought shot through my head, so I apologize for that. Sorry, sometimes, things hit you. I've had a few of those this week. And someone I was listening to just kind of put some words together that, I've heard a bazillion times, but just the way it was phrased made sense to me. I mean, like, really made sense to me, totally hit me and was like, oh, really? And that reminds me of the lifeboat this morning. I said I was going to take a poll, and I will just kind of throw it out there for right now. I want to see if we can get some more people here so that we can get some more answers to this poll. But Blessed to Crochet, welcome. So glad you are here. Thank you, Misha, for shooting that out. Yeah, trigger warning, guys. As always, self-care is first and primary. If you feel yourself, just getting a little too anxious, please step out. Either watch this later and take it in smaller bites, or just get this one, okay? On the lifeboat this morning, we were discussing trauma in general. And some people were sharing, in the chat. And one of the things that kind of came up, that one person said, oh, I overshare and it's because of sexual assault. And somebody else was like, well, maybe that's why I overshare. And somebody else was, I overshare too. And I'm a survivor. And so, kind of one by one, I think at least about 6 of us in the end had shown up. And I wanted to take just an informal poll of how many people, if you're comfortable sharing only, how many people feel they are oversharers. Either they've been told so or they catch themselves doing it. I, for the longest time, didn't realize I was an oversharer. No one ever told me. They either made fun of me, which I didn't understand why, and I wish they would have just freaking told me. However, is what it is, right? Midnight Show, welcome. Sandy Wandy, I'm so glad you're here. Really? I overstate? Wow. No, really? Oh. Yes, thank you for bringing this up. This definitely was an announcement we needed to make today. So this coming Wednesday, Mary Jones from Blessed to Crochet is going to be on the program, and we are discussing what is sexual assault. What do we include in it? We kind of have our obvious answers, right? But what else? Are there things that we generally don't think of? How do things of what seem to be a lesser degree of severity, how do those things affect somebody versus a severe incident? So we're going to discuss a few of those concepts and ideas. So it should be a really, really good, really, really good. Put an 8 in the chat for overshares. And already I'm getting ones who they weren't on the lifeboat this morning stating yes, indeed. Janet, you're the opposite. You just, there's one in every family, isn't there? Right? Just got to go against the grain. That's all right. We still love you. Does it come out, or are you saying you overshare like all at once, or you just don't overshare? Does it come out some other way? You gotta get rid of that. Gotta purge some of that. However you do that, through exercise, through healthy means of purging. This is very true, and I think that not only just as I've gotten older, certainly I was walking my friend's dog here, so it's a different complex. I'm not used to, different environment. It was daytime, but still, I found myself not really concerned, but just more aware of myself and surroundings, I think, than I've been in quite a while. And so that was really different. And it made me feel vulnerable on a whole nother level that I really hadn't before. And part of that was just knowing that I'm not in the greatest shape right now physically. I have very little muscle mass, and that I wouldn't be able to fight anybody off. But not only from that standpoint, the fact that I've gotten a lot older. And yeah, you kind of put those together. It's like, whoosh, yeah, wow. It was not a great feeling. So definitely from one of those standpoints, I certainly understand where you come from, and I think we've all had our experiences where we've overshared too soon, probably before we even trusted somebody before we shouldn't have. So we, have overshared with them. Sometimes oversharing, though, isn't necessarily about trust. Sometimes it's just we will anybody. But I certainly tend to trust too easy and have overshared with people who I shouldn't have, who didn't necessarily always have my best interests at heart, right? So I think that there's nothing wrong with being careful. Absolutely nothing wrong with being careful and being picky with who we choose to share that information with. And that goes 100% for our stories, whether that's my story or your story. Even if someone said their story before, that's their own story, okay? And no one can be forced to divulge more than they're ready to. No one should be pressured to at all. I will certainly never say that you absolutely 100% have to disclose to somebody, because if you're at least getting support, if you're getting support through here, you're finding a connection, that's something. It's when you're in isolation and you haven't told anybody, and you're not actively dealing with the issue because you're sticking your head in the sand. It's, that's when it's a huge concern. Yes, Jen, you just blurted it out to everybody. Everybody walks away. We're talking not just oversharing about whatever your assault trauma is. We're just talking about oversharing in general. So it can be, how was your weekend type of thing. And some of us are much more likely to give more significant details than others will. So we tend to overshare in lots of other aspects. And at least that's what I took out of this morning's discussion at the lifeboat. The way I was taking it was not just limited to assault, but in general. I think you overshare one-on-one. Yeah. I can see this where some people could say they do. Yes, Andy. I'm talking about oversharing just in general. I think that most of us, by nature of being survivors, trust is the one thing that takes a lot to gain that sort of trust in a survivor. And I think it's going to be an unusual person. It's an unusual survivor who's just oversharing about their essay. I think most of us keep that pretty close to the vest. And actually, I was really, really surprised. I don't know what I expected the numbers to show out in terms of disclosures. This particular disclosure or statistic is talking about childhood abuse. And for women, the average disclosure delay is about 20 years. And for men, it's almost 30 years. I'm not surprised that there's a significant time distance, time gap between the men and the women. That does not surprise me at all. What just surprised me was the numbers in general for how late they were for both men and women. I guess I thought that, I don't know, I just thought that we had been reporting them a little bit more and disclosures had gotten someplace. But I'll tell you, these numbers have not changed a whole heck of a lot in the last decade. What I hope it means, though, is there are more people getting some private help. Again, in the last 10 years, you've got the advent of the internet and being able to connect like we are now. So you're not necessarily going to have somebody disclosing to a therapist or disclosing to, might be part of a poll, an anonymous poll, or someone who you're actually paying for through insurance or whatnot. So that, hopefully it means that more people are actually getting connection. And I am not ready to share it right now, but I did just see it was a pretty incredible way of looking at trauma in terms of your ability to change it and when it's really outside of your ability to change it, and recognizing those states and not trying to change something while you are in a state where you can't effectuate anything. Anyway, I'm definitely going to do a video on it. I may just do a straight video to get it out to you guys quicker, because I just thought it was so fascinating. But I need to listen through it again, probably at least a couple more times, to make sure I understand all of it, because it is a very psychologically driven. It's a lot of concepts, and I want to make sure that I can boil that down and say it in my speak, if you know what I mean. Disclosure to whom? To anyone? Yeah, we were just talking about oversharing, absolutely, in general. Like I said, if you're standing around the water cooler, everyone's talking about their weekend, there's going to be that one person who's speaking in much greater detail than you probably wanted to know. And that probably would have been me, because I just had no clue how to do that properly. I was not taught social skills in that regard. And Janet, this is a lot of us. And I am of the firm belief, it is not that the event which triggered the trauma or imprinted the trauma is unimportant. However, if you're going to take a priority in figuring out what's what, I think that there are things that, if you're dealing with the trauma from it, the outflow from it, it's not going to necessarily improve your situation if you're telling somebody. If you have identified it, if it's something that you are actively working on, then okay. For me personally, for a lot of people I know, there is a power to be gained from talking. And what I will say to you is telling somebody doesn't have to mean another person. It can be your other somebody, your journal somebody, whether you write, whether you talk, whether it's a video or voice journal. That can count as disclosing to somebody. By having to run through it in that sort of specific, you're getting it out, and you're getting it out all in one piece. And I do think that there's a power in that, in understanding exactly what we are going through, what we were through, what we survived, what we have control over now. You know, you write that narrative as you see fit. Nobody else has control of that right now. And so for me, that was the power of talking about, not so much the initial disclosure, but in later being able to speak to other survivors about what I went through and how I've dealt with it, how I'm still dealing with it, the things that have been successful and the things that haven't been. Because I feel a little more in control of my own life every time I do. That piece of me becomes smaller in terms of the effects that it has on my life, because I'm learning to deal with trauma. I'm learning to deal with stress in a better way, in a more positive way, a more effective way. So that's what I get out of it. And everyone's different. And that's what I want everyone to truly understand, because I did see in some of these lectures and some interviews with people that they will say that, you know, you have to tell somebody, you have to tell somebody. From the aspect that I'm saying, you have to tell somebody that somebody at least needs to be yourself, that I do agree with. Just putting it in a box and putting it away will not work as much as we would love it to. Sometimes we think it works, or we think it works in the short term, but really all that pain, all the angst, all the anger is just going to leak out in other ways, in your panics and your anxiety and your depression and whatever negative feeling that you're, invariably going to feel. So do what you feel is right. Any disclosure that you do, make sure that the person who you're disclosing to understands you may or may not get through everything that you want to say, but you'll do as much as you feel you can. And give yourself that grace to say, I've said as much as I can today. I'm going to have to continue another time. I did not get through all of it my first time. It took me several times to get it all out because it was just too much. So there is actually no shame in any of this, right? But particularly, there's no shame in taking your time. We're all going to heal at different levels. Our disclosures, our needs in terms of that is going to be different. If you come away from my lives with nothing else, is realizing that the thing that brings us all together, sexual assault, trauma of some sort, is also the thing that is probably the biggest differences between us, because everything is so individualized. You're not going to find two people who are going to react to things the same way. You're not going to find people who they may have one thing in common and they've got 14 other things that are totally different from them. The treatment needs to be as specialized as the people are. And there are some generalities we can make, but I bring this up specifically because of the videos that I watched and some of the generalities that were stated there that aren't necessarily 100% true. So for any of you that came in a little bit later, DeAudre Gore, hello. So welcome. So yeah, we are going to get to today's actual topic, which is male sexual assault survivors. We were just kind of going over some things in general with survivors. Yeah, I bet, Todd. Do you still journal? Is that anything that you've started up recently again, or has it helped at all? Be interested to know. There are things that are never going to leave us, right? We can deal with them the best that we can. A lot of us, I've been amazed to learn just the true scope of coping mechanisms that are out there, and why you're using one thing is not working for you, because your brain is wired a little bit differently. So you really should be using this kind of coping mechanism, still getting at the same place, but coming at the problem, coming at the issue from a different angle. And there were some things in there that I had just never considered as being an option of looking at a single problem from two different perspectives and actually still getting to the same correct place. And the other way actually made so much more sense to me. So I think that's something that we will speak about in the future. Kristen, hello. So glad that you are here. Yes, thanks, Misha, for the trigger warning again. Definitely, please, everyone, step out, close the door, take care of yourself. If you find that any of this is getting too overwhelming for you, if your anxiety is kicking up at all, if your heartbeat starts racing, please, you always come first. DeAudre, so you don't have to put it in writing. This is the one thing that has come along from us from having our phones or our laptops or computers, is if you can do either just a voice recording, or if you want to do a face-to-face, a computer recording, just talk, talk to yourself as you are now. Some people like talking to themselves aged down in their mind at the age that they were abused at, or with whatever memory that they're speaking about. I would probably, for me personally, I would probably do a voice recording, but with the picture off, because I think I would get distracted by myself, and I'd want to really be focusing on. I do like writing, though, because it does cement what I'm saying into my brain more than speaking. And especially if I'm trying to work through things, having things cemented in my brain a little bit more, it's easier to work through than having to reread through everything all the time. I want tea, Janet. I'll take that. Yeah. Oh, Matrix, please lay down. It's always fight or flight. Yeah. And this is one of the things that the video that I was watching had to speak to was, what do we do when we get stuck in those modes? And yeah, I think I might take the first few minutes of, no, I'm going to do a separate video. I've decided, because I want to get it out to you guys. So hopefully, I'm not sure if this weekend, but maybe Monday I can record something on it. It's about, in case any of you have heard about it, it's called the window of tolerance concept. And that's within that area is where we can deal with trauma and process it. But if we are outside of our window of tolerance, dealing with and processing trauma becomes very, very difficult. And you're not going to be able to do it effectively or efficiently. So that's the concept in general. Huh. Yeah. Do you have a video record option, Misha, on your phone? Because you could just have it facing the camera facing down or something, or maybe it's something you just don't, want to have on your phone. I don't know. Or maybe they have transcripts available if it's a voicemail service. That would be handy, actually. Yeah, a lot of times, especially, our partners, right? It's hard for a lot of people just to sit back and listen to somebody's problem and not do anything about it, or not at least throw a 2 cents in. I know I'm horribly guilty of that most of the time. And I try so hard not to, but I'm very, very guilty of that. Todd saying he has a smartphone. To have a smartphone have a recorder built into it then. Yeah. So I don't know, that may or may not be an option. Oh, wait a minute. So Misha, are you talking about there would be like a service and you could call in and it's kind of like posting your rant or whatever? So then somebody else can comment on your rant, or maybe took something from that. Is that what you're meaning? Because that's really kind of a cool idea. Yeah, sometimes just hearing somebody else's event, you see the second way of seeing something. Yeah, because that's the side that they're coming from and that they're talking from. And I remember the feeling of the first time I truly saw a situation, that an emotional type situation that you could come at from two different angles. Because I've been brought up my whole life, there's one way, there's the right way, there's one way to do the right way. And so really truly saying there are two different ways to do this, and neither one being worse, neither one being a preference over another, other than just us as people, right? That was really powerful. Okay. Well, I can't help you, Misha, but if anybody has some ideas on how to help with Misha's issues, she said she's got it all figured out besides the voicemail line. So if you have some ideas about that, you can feel free. second. Okay, no, that wasn't. I spoke with Jen earlier today. So we had our plans. We'll just say a little hope and prayer and everything's okay. And she's just running late for some reason, or the traffic's really bad. Gypsy Daisy, so glad you're here. Misha says she's getting there. You just can't. Your mind keeps straying. Yeah, you can't focus to figure it out. It will come then. It will come. I firmly believe that there are good things coming for all of us in different ways, and maybe not in the ways that we expected, but hopefully in the ways that we needed. Oh no. Kristen, it sounds like you need to get outside and you need to breathe some fresh air. Yeah, if I think you've been inside Target a little too long, it's sounding like. And caboodles are back. Oh boy. Yeah, I'm just hoping that nothing came up with her mom. So just cross our fingers and say a little prayer up that everything is okay. Okay, somebody can explain caboodles. I need to open up my book here. Some of these, I don't want to get these stats wrong. So it was really interesting to me how much, I don't know, I guess I wanted to think that we had. You guys still hear me? In this male-female, male masculinity, boys don't cry, boys don't show emotion thing, that it's really fairly recent that really any strides have been made. So even when you're speaking to men who are of my generation, who grew up in the 70s and 80s, and the people who are in their 40s and later 30s, even right now as well, we definitely, there still was more of that men should be men type of attitude than I think that I realized. And I think from being a woman too, for hopefully that makes sense, that I'm not as cued into it. I only had one brother, and that's not anything, my dad was a Marine, so he definitely was that type of person, but my brother, antithesis of that. So when I was doing the research, some of the information that was coming up in terms of reasons why men didn't disclose childhood abuse until nearly 30 years later on average, had a lot to do with, I say, old-fashioned, toxic, however you want to term it, ideas of what a man is, or how they're defined, what their characteristics are. So in general, men, they not only have the stigma of being a sexual assault survivor, they have the additional distinction of being a male sexual assault survivor. So my heart goes out to them, because we as women know what it is in most circumstances to have something be a little bit more because we are women. So my heart goes out to them that they have to feel that addition heaped upon them. I certainly hope that as the generations go on, that there will be better understanding. And I think as recognition of grooming and the education, as things are so readily available through TikTok and through sharing through YouTube, that even if the education is on an informal level, information is getting out there. Stigmas are being released or at least reduced in areas. And so hopefully it will make it easier for everyone to come forward. Some of the things that people spoke about in regards to the male stigma aspect was, for one, an issue of masculinity, that you were always hetero. Men don't cry, men are tough, they don't have emotions. Men initiate sexual contact, they don't just take it. Anything you can think of in those terms. So these were huge barriers to men not disclosing, because by disclosing, that would mean they were not a real man. They were less than. They were weak. They were something they were always told they shouldn't be, and something that they would be ridiculed or ostracized or, potentially embarrassed by. And it was interesting too, because I had never thought about these factors as much. There's also personal and interpersonal areas. And all of these three areas are the main barriers for disclosure. And this is for women as well as for men. It's just what goes into each of the categories is a little different. But on interpersonal, one that's really universal for both men and women is the mistrust of others. When that type of trust, especially as a child, is shattered, it makes us not want to trust again. When you have such a response to an event, when it's a trauma that results as a result of something that really makes you want to say, I don't want to do that again. That's not fun. No, thank you. And this mistrust of others, one of the things that I learned through this was that has to do with, it affects our attachment styles later on in life. So the types of relationships that we're able to have, the levels, what levels do you trust at? What's considered a little too guarded? One specifically here for men, is homophobia. I don't know on the female side if there would be something similar, if the abuse was between two females. I don't know if homophobia would be of concern to them or not. I just have a feeling not to the degree that it was for men. When I say was for, it's because of the survey these particular studies had done. I'm not using numbers from them because they weren't excruciatingly, they weren't very large. and it was just 2 studies. So, but I do believe that the points are well made. I just don't know at what levels it would be appropriate to say for that. But homophobia being a big one, fear of being labeled gay, because that was the opposite of masculine, right? So, because masculine was hetero. So, and it could be dangerous, right, to your life in some areas. I remember when the first gay hate crime really came to the forefront of mass media attention. Does anybody else remember this in the 80s? There seemed to be almost a ramp up of gay hate crimes. Kind of like somebody realized, oh, hey, we can bash on the gays, and this is a special aspect of crime. It just seemed that we had more all of a sudden. Maybe it was just that more were getting reported. And Todd says, with most men, they get adrenaline, or at least they treat themselves inside like that. I can see that. Lisa says, yes, I noticed it was horrible. The 90s weren't any better. No, they weren't. They definitely weren't. It hit the transgender community fairly quickly. And so that's just another area where you would see these hate crimes increased. And sometimes the abuse these people, my heart goes out to them. Janet, you're right. I'd be interested to know. What I do not know are the kind of statistics of people, of how many disclosed as a teenager or before they were 18, and see kind of how the numbers have gone over the last 30 years. I know at least over the last 50 years, because that's how long I've been alive, that definitely been significant. I think I knew. Yes, Shannon, you're right. AIDS really brought an awareness to being homosexual like nothing else did. Because before then, really, it wasn't talked about. It was swept under the rug because, you weren't supposed to be gay. It was an embarrassment to the family, so you were just owned a lot of times if you would come out. Some areas they were actively arrested. So AIDS forced that onto the front stage, the worldwide stage, like nothing else had. Even if areas were still denying that heterosexuals could actually get AIDS. Anybody else remember the blanket that they put out, the quilt that they had of all the AIDS victims by names? They unrolled on Washington Square that one year. That was powerful. Janet says, just a little bit older than I am, that in the 70s, boy or girl, you were thought of as a freak. Todd says, I've known guys and girls who were thrown out of their houses. Yeah, it's too sad. The AIDS quilt, yes, thank you. And Ryan White, yes, Ryan White case was definitely was huge. You know, Gypsy, I have heard that, and I saw some interviews with some people who were speaking to this. That Gypsy says she was raised in Latin America, where this this aspect of what is manly, what is masculine, and what is not was a very, very big distinction. She says it was all amplified in Latin American cultures. And I had not known this. And I saw some people speaking to this. And it led me to kind of a little bit of a mini research project of different cultures around the globe and where it's amplified, where it would seem to be, where it is amplified and where it's not amongst, different religions or nationalities or things like that. It was interesting, definitely there are huge pockets of Africa where it would be the same as it is in Latin America in terms of that whole masculine aspect being amplified. Oh, yeah, Todd. I think that that really brought it to my attention. It's not like the other things before him hadn't, but it was the first time that you saw somebody, at least for me, that I remembered seeing somebody before it had been announced that they actually had anything and going, oh yeah, they've got AIDS. And I just remembered seeing Freddie in the last video and just being like, wow, he's sick. And it was one of those things you just couldn't deny. And wow, yeah. And he did. He went fairly long. I love Queen. So a few of the other things and this was one that girls and women do it as well. I think in a little bit different of a way. It's labeled under safety and protection. And what they're talking about is protecting your family and friends. By not disclosing, you're protecting them somehow. Whereas they found, with most women and girls, there was some aspect of protecting them because there was some threat on their physical well-being, right? I'll kill them or do something, as to this. The men often were saying, we're protecting our family and friends from having to deal with knowing a gay by association, even if they weren't gay. All of the fallout from stigma by association, I guess is kind of what they're talking about, that would fall upon their family and friends. And they didn't want that for them. So they were protecting them from that. I thought that was interesting. It was not something that I had thought of as a reason for not disclosing before, honestly. Of course, the abuser factors, excuse me. And a lot of, oh, didn't even mute it, did I? Excuse me. A lot of the ones under the abuser factors are fairly similar between men and women, right? We have just our methods of controlling and manipulating the person. But I thought what was interesting, and where these ideas occurred from are some of these quotes that were through some of the anonymous surveys that they were doing. Sorry, I got a tickle in my throat. So one of the things that the abusers were able to use against their male victims was that, if you tell on me, then you're basically telling on yourself that this has happened to you, and don't you know how you will be viewed? You're going to be viewed as gay or weird or freak or, all these kind of things. So it's going to be worse off for you than it is going to be for me, type of thing. This was something that I actually hadn't heard before, but I suppose definitely could go male or female. I could see an abuser using this one way or the other, but putting it on the child in regards to, see, you know something on me now, and you hold all the power. Because if you told somebody, I'd be ruined. My wife would divorce me, my kids would hate me, I'd lose my job, whatever they want to say to them. I hadn't really thought about that as an abuser tactic before. It makes sense. I just, I didn't even, oh, Gypsy. I'm sorry, guys. I got so sidetracked by a wonderful, wonderful comment. So Gypsy kind of had the typical upbringing the rest of us did, but she said she has a gay daughter who came out to when she was 15. You even officiated her wedding a few days ago. That is fabulous. Just fabulous. Tree has a non-binary daughter. See, and you think being a survivor also helped you to embrace who your daughter chose to be. Tree, that is a wonderful, wonderful way of looking at it. And one of the things that came out of some of the research that I was doing over this past week for several different shows was how much more empathetic they have found survivors to be, particularly survivors of sexual assaults, to be in other areas of their lives and to other people, and not just as a survivor to a survivor thing. I think it makes seeing other people's traumas easier, because even though, like we say, even though the event wasn't the same, you recognize those symptoms in somebody else. You can see trauma where somebody else might see absolutely none. And now that we get to do this, there's such a power in connecting and us drawing on each other's strengths and seeing, oh, we're not alone. Like, oh, you overshare too. You're a survivor. I'm a survivor. We all overshare. We're all survivors. I'm seeing a trend. There's another one a couple weeks ago. It hit me as well. I forget what it was now, but it was so silly. And it was just like, oh, it's probably because I'm a survivor. So many things that actually really relate back to it. That I didn't even think about it. I didn't even think that's a possibility. I don't know. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced that sort of thing. Yeah, we're all individual, but we all have so much common, and realize that we do belong. We do. We belong to each other, right? I forgot to get rid of that. I go back to the prison trauma. It doesn't matter where our trauma comes from. It affects us in really, one of a handful of ways in terms of the types of trauma that you will gain. And then there's the fallout, which can be, this, that, or the other thing within a certain range. And then it's how it applies to our lives at that point in time. And I think that you will find a lot of people who have gotten to a point where they can breathe with their traumas will say this. Gypsy says she's a better person and a mom, not in spite of, but because of your traumas. I definitely know people who it's harder to say that. They want to, but when you're too knee deep in the trauma, it can be really hard to see that other side. But it does exist, guys. It does. Squirrels on your keyboard. Okay. Sometimes you think that pain calls to pain. Yeah, I think it's really easy to recognize it. As some people said, you can just see it in a person's eyes. If you've never seen that kind of pain in somebody's eyes, it'd be easy to overlook. But when you've seen that every day of your life, because that same type of pain exists in your eyes, it makes spotting others a lot easier. And I'm so thankful that we can use the internet, we can use a space like YouTube to tell our stories, to come together, to connect in whatever way, form, or fashion that works for you, and that we can support each other this way. That was one of the things that this video talked about in terms of being able to grow, is being able to enlarge our window of trauma, the window within which we can deal with trauma and we can work through it. And one of the ways we grow is by talking about it, by dealing with it in different ways. And I'm really excited to make that video, guys. Hopefully you'll learn a lot along with me. But if you're anxious to see what I'm trying to talk about before then, look up Window of Trauma. And I'm sure that there are a bunch of videos about the concept we'll kind of you'll be able to get to. Yeah, unfortunately for me, I could have been a much better parent than I was, were it not for some circumstances and addiction for the last little part of it. Negative coping skills are ubiquitous and they're easy, and it's why so many of us fall into the trap of utilizing them, thinking that we're actually going to feel better, thinking we can make ourselves better by relying on any of those, and we certainly can't. Yeah. Sometimes the pain in your heart, if it's too big and it just has nowhere to go, you'll find this is where people often cut themselves or are involved in would be more violent sports or activities to do, because it was an outlet for that pain and the anger that was on the inside. Yeah. Miss, I was just speaking to somebody else today about this, actually. So about the parenting struggle, the guilt, the blame, the dissociation. It was pretty huge. Todd, are you talking about to me? And which link are you speaking about? If it is it the trauma window one? For getting on? I think that's probably what you meant. Dun, da, da. Okay. So the other link I will have to look up. But there is the link for getting on, Todd. Yes, exactly. Gypsy, this is masking our pain. It says the pull of addiction comes from my wanting relief from the abyss and not from wanting to feel high. Exactly. We want to feel something other than we are now, because what we feel now is not comfortable, is not nice. We don't like it, and we would like to be somewhere else. And I think that that's going to be, a lifelong struggle for a lot of us. It's like, with nicotine, it's not something I think about very often, but every now and then it comes up, and it might even stay for a week. That feeling of I really, really, really want to, and it eventually goes away. But it's something that just still pops up now and again, and I'm feeling the pull of the addiction will be as well. Wow, is it raining? Todd, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Hey, how you doing? Sounds like it's raining there.
That's not. Well, it is raining, but that's my air conditioner.
Oh, okay. Well, because it was raining really, really bad here early this morning at like 6 o'clock this morning. That's why I asked. So,
Well, it's been raining on and off all week, and that's been messing with me, and then I was sick on top of it. So
yeah.
it's just been a bad week for me. I felt bad because I don't want to let you down.
No, 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 no. I was gonna say, you have not been feeling the greatest. Stuff has been going around for everybody, and so please, just like I said, that we can have another chat and just be a male female type comparison, and some of the
That's not.
additionals that we were talking about
Yeah, that sounds cool.
that distinguish us. So I want you to get some rest. But has
Well,
it?
I gotta calm down for now, so I
Okay.
want to try to do this because somebody might see it and say, "Hey, this happened to me too."
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Please.
I just want to try to help people because I've heard a lot of trying to balance out my karma. But no,
I.
I had both sexes, come
Mm-hmm.
after me. I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had three girlfriends. One was 27. The other two were 21 when I was 17 years old.
Okay.
I mean, I wasn't a normal 17-year-old either.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I went in the Navy, a guy drugged me and I woke up very confused.
Yeah,
um,
drugs have a chance to do that.
yeah, well, yeah, I mean, he spiked my drink, so,
Oh,
and I mean,
please.
it's a 50-year-old dude. I was just like, come on, really?
Really.
Well, that set me spinning because I couldn't tell anybody because
Mm-hmm.
I was 18 years old, first time really, well, not my first time really away from home, but long term, like I wasn't going to go back, for like, I had like 3 years. That was my contract when I went in.
Mm-hmm.
And I just started, so if I told them, they would have kicked me out.
Right.
So I couldn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, and I drank. I drank a lot. I do
Y-
mean a lot.
Did you try and put it in a box, or did that
Oh,
not work so well, and that was part of the drinking reason?
well, I mean, it wasn't my first time that it happened to me. I mean, it happened to me when I was 72, down by the river. Older
Mm-hmm.
kid, you know, older kid doing,
Yeah.
he was like, what, 17? I was 7. So to me, it's all about power, I guess.
Absolutely is. power and control.
Yeah.
Taking without non-consent, that's all it ever is about. So I don't want any of you guys to ever feel that guilt, that blame, that shame, because it's not on you. Doesn't
Well,
matter.
I had the guilt, the shame, and I had all that, and then I had physical abuse from my dad on top of it. So I was really angry at a real young
Mm,
age.
yeah, so you had some trauma built on some trauma.
Yeah. I mean, my life hasn't been all bad. I had some good parts too, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the bad ones tend to stick out a little bit more.
As don't most of the things, our own mistakes, right? They all become 10 times bigger in our minds, I think, than they are for other people. And that's why I do say, try and remind myself to give myself some grace, because I am not good at giving it to myself, but
Well,
I
I don't
will
think
give
any
it
of
to
it.
you all day long.
Well, yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. That is the thing. I mean, none of us who've gone through it will give ourselves any grace. We blame ourselves,
Hmm.
and it's designed that way. So you never, you don't want to talk about it. You don't want to do this. And I had teachers at school come on to me when I was 17,
Hmm.
and I was just like, really.
Hmm.
But like I said, I wasn't a normal 17-year-old. I mean, I've been. I grew up around construction workers. My mom worked for Bechtel. She
Oh,
helped build
wow.
build power plants. So we had pipe fitters with welders,
Yeah.
um, the masonry guys. Everybody would come over and hang out at my mom's house. So I mean, I knew way more about stuff at 7 than the rest of my friends did.
Oh, okay, because of who they were.
Well, yeah, I was around it all, and they all kept on picking on me, so I got really good at picking back.
Mm.
So I mean, now it helps me.
Hmm.
If I see a bully and they start picking on somebody, I'm like, you know what? I could be a bigger bully than you, and I get them to shut up because I get them to think. I said, why are you doing this to this person? What did they do to you?
Hmm.
I was like, what? They weren't fast enough with their order? Your order? That's no reason to get mad at them.
Hmm.
I don't like bullies
No,
because I was bullied. So.
I think a lot of us are. As Davey was it said da, 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 da. Who
Hey,
said it?
Davey.
Think it was, yeah, Deidre Gore said predators are really good at profiling children who have a tough home life. Makes them easier to groom, and they're extremely good at picking out the vulnerability, picking out the kids who are vulnerable for whatever reason, whether it's because they've already been sexually assaulted, which is so much more common, I think, than people realize. Than I think other survivors realize. I want to reframe that because I have heard from so many survivors that, wait a minute, you mean it was because I was victimized once that it made it easier for me to be victimized again? It wasn't just that I was a stupid idiot or I was in the wrong place at the wrong time constantly, or,
Oh
whatever the
no.
narrative they've, done through their minds.
Oh,
They don't
abusers can
realize.
smell it on you.
Oh, it certainly feels that way, right? And it is. It's because of not only, and this was really interesting that I learned. It's not only the type of outward vulnerabilities that we will put off, but it also has to do with once we start talking to someone, the because of our traumas, the way our brain patterns will go and the way our thoughts will go, it makes us that much more likely to just fall into the old patterns, whatever that old pattern was, of acceptance, of, you know, kowtowing, of yesing, of, whatever. Um,
Or trying to, kill it in your mind by drinking as much alcohol as you could find.
yeah, it's why a lot of trauma survivors have huge addiction issues, and that does span the gamut, from eating issues A lot of people did. Uh, I've heard a lot of people tell me I didn't realize my eating issues were connected to my trauma in that particular way. Like I always thought that they were connected somehow, but I was eating my feelings. Um,
Or they were searching for control of something.
Control, power, something to make you feel good. There's also this aspect, and it's more subconscious than it is conscious. I have heard some people tell me it was more of a conscious decision, but it is the concept of making yourself so quote unquote unattractive to the opposite sex that you nobody could possibly want you like that again. And it really, it's a falsehood to begin with, because it's like there is somebody for everybody. So just because you're making yourself one way, it doesn't mean that you're actually dissuading anybody who is going to be perpetrating a sexual assault. Or I shouldn't say, not everybody who could be. Um, but but it's definitely there on a subconscious level for a lot of victims, particularly when they were younger and they start eating early on. They don't put the two and two together until later. Um,
Yeah, I used to when everything was out of control, I would cut
mhm.
myself because it was the only thing I could control.
Yeah, yeah. Was it? Was there
For the
also an aspect of being able to feel your inner pain on the outside?
yeah,
Yeah,
that's exactly what it was.
yeah.
I just wanted to feel the pain. So I mean, it's probably the reason why I got. I'm heavily tattooed on my arms and my hands.
Yep,
And it's
yep.
probably the reason why I did it. I mean, it started when I was 18. I got two little ones, and then I got a couple more, and a couple more, and then I
I
got
have heard
disabled,
this.
and I got disabled, and they gave me a bunch of money. So I took like 5 grand, and I just got ink everywhere because, well, this is really who I am.
Well, there you go.
I mean, these are my scars of trauma and pain on
Uh-huh.
the outside.
Right. That other people can see. I've heard
Yep,
this,
I call it
not
therapy.
right, and not just from a therapy standpoint, concept standpoint, but from a living some of the pain on the outside through the tattoo gun. And I hadn't considered that before. Started hearing and seeing so many tattooed people, and I asked somebody about it, and that's when they kind of clued me into this aspect. I'm like, oh, and it makes perfect sense.
Well, I mean, I research everything before I do anything. I mean,
Okay.
it's me looking for control when that is not, I guess. Um, but I got really into like to tattooing culture and all the stuff behind tattooing. Like the
Mm-hmm.
Maoris used to tattoo their face
Oh,
as a,
yeah.
but I mean the designs they used, it was all
Mm-hmm.
like sacred geometry stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
it's beautiful.
I love it.
but it
It's
but it was a rite of passage. Every
painful.
culture has a rite of passage except for
Mm-hmm.
us. I mean, in the 70s and 80s, I mean, like you see them. Was it Days and Confused where they're running around kids with
Mm-hmm.
paddles? I lived in a town that actually happened.
Oh
Sixth
my
grade,
goodness.
sixth grade. Oh, they got let out early to come over and beat us with the paddles.
Oh my
So
goodness.
yeah, no. So I mean, people I've watched this movie. With people, they go, "Did that really happen?" I said, "It happened to me,
Yeah.
just like that." So I mean, it's just there was a lot more things tolerated back then than now.
Oh, well, that's absolutely for sure. 100%, you
I
know.
mean, okay, it was the '80s, and I had girlfriends in my 20s, and my friends of my mom would come over and they see this woman come in. We like, who's that? Oh, that's Todd's girlfriend. They're like, how old is he? 17. How old is she? 21. And they're like, "How do you do that?" And they go. She just looked at him and goes, "It's Todd. Todd can do anything he puts his mind to."
Yeah, and I think now later on, so
But
many
I was
more.
getting pat on the backs and everything, and today it's
Exactly.
like, oh, and it's if somebody tried to with that my kid at 17, oh no, I would have been all over him. But like
Yeah,
I said, it's a different time.
well, it is. I mean, I was 17. My first, no, I can't say that was about. Um, I had a boyfriend who was 22.
Mm-hmm.
He became my
Mm-hmm.
first husband, and we were together for 15 years. So, I mean, it was actually a good match. Um, but just from a strict
Yeah.
age standpoint, I know all the adults had their concerns at first until they realized I was a pretty sophisticated young lady, and he was a very good Catholic school boy. So
Well, a good Catholic schoolboy. That that that's not my
yeah,
recollection.
yeah. I don't know.
Good Catholic schoolboys to me were bullies.
Oh no, no. We're talking toe the line straight.
Oh,
We're all good.
he was good to you.
Oh yes, he was.
Well, that's good. That's what's
Yeah,
important.
as far as a husband goes, but he was definitely on the naive spectrum when we first got together. Um, so it was kind of the blind leading the blind in all categories. I think that our parents realized that we were um, kind of
Were
on the
you just
same
looking for
level.
your Were you just looking for your happy ever after?
Um, I don't think that I really knew what was looking for or wanting. I hadn't been schooled on relationships at all. It wasn't anything that I'd been talked to about.
I mean, were you
Um,
sheltered?
uh, I wouldn't say I was sheltered. Advice giving wasn't something that was real big in my family. Um, so you kind of either figured it out or you didn't.
Yeah.
Um, unless you took my dad's advice. There was always his advice to go by, which was the only right way, by the way.
Well,
So,
uh, my my dad in his right way. Yeah, no, I couldn't. I mean, I have problems with relationships because of all this.
yeah.
It affects me to this day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what? And, there's not I can do about it. It's part of who I am, and it's always been
Mm-hmm.
there. So
Yeah. It does.
it just sucks. Yes.
It's a hard thing to deal with. It's a hard thing to walk through, and especially if you still love and care about your parents, but you to reconcile their failings, their faults, shortcomings. And I try not to judge too harshly in some areas because I know that they were a product of their time and as things were going through. But it's family. It's never easy with family. It's never easy with family on the best of times. Um, how did you um, how did you decide to first start speaking out? I know when we spoke earlier, you said you've been doing this for a few years. What?
Well, I've been telling my friends, anybody who wanted to know or listen. I mean, if they wanted to
Mm-hmm.
get to know me, I overshared.
Okay.
I mean,
One of those too. Yes.
I would overshare, and they'd be like, "Oh, oh, oh," and then
Eh,
they'd be like, "That makes sense."
yeah.
Because I'm really guarded about the information I do let out, which a lot of you would probably be like, "No," but no, I don't tell everybody anything. I have to be comfortable with people. I'm
Mm-hmm.
comfortable with you. I'm comfortable with Carol. I'm comfortable with
Yeah.
Christy. I'm comfortable. I mean, I sit in your lives all the time, and
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
comments and try to get people to smile and do whatever
Yeah.
I can do. It's just I just I try to take a bad situation and try to make it a little bit better
Yeah.
with a little comedy thrown in there. Like I said, my I use it as like my dad's funeral. I use it to do a little stand up, and I had
Hmm.
everybody rolling, and there was like 200 people there, so it was loud. I mean, it, it was fun too, but it was loud, and you know,
Misha
I
says we love hashtag we love Todd.
well, I love Misha. Misha and we check on each other,
It's good.
so
It's good. I'm glad, and I'm glad that
and
a lot of you
and
guys do, which is
and
just so fabulous.
I got a couple other people I talk to, like Davey. What therapies are helping me is that just with tree hugger.
Okay.
I journal a lot. I mean, I did go someplace for therapy because I didn't think I had a problem, but it was pointed out to me that I did. So I went to this place for about a year, and I got to see a therapist, like once a month. So I talked to her about it. She got me to open up about it and talk about it. And once, then I started journaling, and things just, when you journal, sometimes things just come out.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't even realize it happened. You
Mm-hmm.
go back and reread it later, and you're like, oh, that was bad. Um, yeah,
It'll be
I, I,
amazing to me to journal
I,
after a week of
uh,
researching and some of the dots and connections I make, and it's like, oh, whoa, hey, looky there.
yeah, exactly. Plus, I mean, I read like papers on bipolar and stuff like that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I try to find out. I don't use drugs. I can't use the drugs
Mm-hmm.
to keep myself where I need to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I do basically I control everything with journaling right now. That's how I keep myself even, not too happy, not too sad.
Okay. Well,
Because
that's not.
if I go one way or the other, it's not good. I mean, if I go for that, if I get the highs, I mean, everybody loves that, but
Mm-hmm.
nobody likes the lows. Because when I go deep and dark,
Mm-hmm.
it's really dark,
Yeah.
and some people can't handle it. It's just trying to figure out a way to live. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know what love is, but I would like to find out what it is.
I have a feeling that this is one of the biggest step forwards towards it. At least for me, I feel that, I hope that it's in my future. There's people I've learned to love on much different levels, not like the romantic, true love, riding off into the sunset, type of love. But,
Well, I don't think
all
I'm
of you
ever gonna get
guys,
that.
well, you never say never. You never know.
Hey, I'm
Yes, it's getting
53.
it's getting
I'm
higher.
53. I'm 53 and I've been dead twice. So I mean,
Well, you've come
I
back
mean
both times, so
nobody really
and
wants to go out with the dead man. I mean, and
no,
that's the way a lot of people look at me. And when they find out about my heart, they're like, "Oh, okay. Well, it's not gonna date you." It
no,
just
well,
automatically puts me out, and I'm just like, I get bummed about it sometimes.
yeah, I can imagine. It's gonna take that person who thinks enough of you as a person to say, I want to spend as much time as I possibly can with you before, you go.
That
And
would be
that's
nice.
how we're really should be looking at everybody, right? And,
I think I've
our
only
friends
ever had
and
that happen to me once in my entire life, where somebody actually came after me and was like, "We're gonna date." Yeah, and
mhm.
that's when I was like 13 years old. Like my first real girlfriend. She dug me. She was into me. Right? She's on the phone with me. Everything. She wrote. She wrote me like 3 letters overnight. I mean, like, I'm not gonna write this money back, right?
At least you were honest.
Well, yeah. I mean, I could sum all this up in one letter.
Yeah.
Maybe
Don't
maybe
worry
two
about too much.
pages.
I wanted to say that Anika was kind of mirroring some of what Misha had to say in regards to taking care of ourselves, especially when we have isolated, if we're not out with each other. Gosh, the other day, Jen and I were comparing, I think it was the how many days has it gone since you've had a shower game? Um,
Oh, I could play that game.
yeah, it was fun. It was fun for a while. I mean, because we've both been there,
Really not healthy, but okay.
No, but we've been there before. So sometimes being able to laugh about those things is better than it's better than the alternative. So we try and
Yeah,
make a little
well,
bit
I mean,
light of it, we make jokes about it, and
I was doing pretty good up until the pandemic. I was on my way down to. I was actually like a week away from going down to Nashville
oh
to
wow,
try to find a band down there because I play bass. Really good bass player.
oh, cool.
I just want to put that out there. If anybody's looking for a bass player,
All right, keep it in mind. Got it in my back
um,
pocket.
I've been playing for 40 years, so I should
Nice,
be a little. I should be good. Um,
nice, awesome.
but I'm a little rusty, so I got a couple of classical like Bach, Johann Bach, and is it Debussy, a couple other composers. It's all
Mm-hmm.
composed for bass, and I love classical.
Oh,
So I
nice.
bought those books, and it helps you bone up on your chops because it's a lot of repetitive stuff.
Right.
Um, but I mean, it's the timing of it, though.
Mm-hmm.
It's just perfect. The guy who did this, he's pretty good. Yeah, there's another book I'm gonna get, and it's uh, by Johann Bach, and it's actually a solo. It's a whole book of solos for two basses, and I'm gonna record the one line on the bass, and then the lead line I'm gonna play.
Oh, that would be awesome. Tree, take care of yourself. Okay. We're so glad
Later,
that you are
tree.
here. Yeah, we'll definitely catch you on another live, I'm sure. Todd and I were talking about this, and Jen and I were as well, that it's, you know, I think one of the reasons why some of these connections have created so quickly and have created quite strongly in some instances is because we are so interconnected. It's not just that we're interpersonally connected, just you and me, but it's that we are interconnected between the different channels, and we get so many different opportunities to see each other and talk to one another. And since every meeting, the focus is a little bit different, so the vibe and the overall community is a little bit different in each, but and so we learn a little bit something different, I think, about each other. Different circumstances come up, different humor comes up,
Hmm.
uh, and I think that
Dark
that is
humor comes up.
what we all
I'm
deal with things in different ways,
well.
you know.
I have some really dark humor, so
Yeah, and some people. There was a gal this morning who was just saying something about her dark humor, and we all deal in different ways. It is a community, Izzy, and it's growing, and it does take a village. I thought about calling you guys villagers, but then Minecraft might come after me, so I said no, we won't call you villagers. And one of my
thing
friends
is,
reminded me that you could. Was it you who said that they'd only be able to go That's all they say. I thought, oh, that would suck too. So, um, but yeah, it's absolutely. I think that, and I wanted to speak to Davy. I'm so happy that things have worked out. Talking about different ways that we self harm, and from pulling eyelashes to scraping salt in your hair, pulling your hair out, all different ways that we try to just feel something because we can't let what's on the inside out. Um, I there was just a few other things actually I wanted to mention real quick under the interpersonal barriers for disclosure. And I think the last one actually is just past negative responses, meaning, and this doesn't definitely goes for both men and women, is that if you've tried to disclose before and you've gotten a negative reaction, you've either been shut down completely or just brushed aside, or it can be you've seen how others have been treated when they've tried to disclose. And by watching that, going, okay, yeah, I see how I'm going to be treated, and that's not very nice, and I'm not going to be disclosing. So that could be
Well,
a different
sometimes
variant.
the cure is worse than what you went.
It's and it's sad that happens. I've shared with you guys my experience with my mother when I
Well,
was 11 and tried to disclose.
well, yeah. You weren't believed.
And
I could tell you that right now.
yeah, and
I
you know,
wasn't believed.
and it definitely stuns me the amount of people that I still hear who say, yeah, I wasn't believed. And I just kind of got, I just like, and I guess
Well,
it's, the reason that I was always so determined that I was always going to believe every child, because I never was. And I realized that there's a slight risk within that of someone being manipulated, but I would rather believe the child and work things out from there than to not to believe the child, just brush them aside.
yeah, but that happened to well, 70s, 80s, early 90s. That happened to a
Mm,
lot of us. I mean,
yeah.
nobody really took that like really seriously until the whole Catholic Church thing blew up.
Well,
That's when people really started looking into this, and the more they
do
looked into it, the more they were sticking by it. And now look at it. Look at how many women have been busted in schools for going after their students now. I mean, it's
right. The Catholic Church in regards to
well, not
men.
well. I'm saying that, but I'm just saying regular public school. How many women over the last 3 years have
Oh,
gone to jail
right.
for it? I mean,
Absolutely.
it's over 20.
Yeah.
So I mean,
It's
I guess it's starting to even out where both sides are getting whacked for it. Because,
yeah, the
like I
tide has
said,
definitely changed in regards to that. I think that, you remember the Macmillan is it, yeah, I think Macmillan. It was
McMillan or McMartin trial.
McMartin, the daycare case.
Yeah.
Yeah, McMartin. Um, you know, that thrust everything into hyperdrive. And of
Well,
course, in the fallout from that, I think really helped the pendulum switch it kind of back in the other direction of, well, going to we're going to try and discuss it within ourselves, within a family, before we ever report it or go tell anybody, because, heaven knows we could be accusing the wrong people, or, and so things kind of went in the other direction, I think, for a while too. But one of the last little piece in regards to the barriers to disclosure was the personal issues. And for one was just internal emotions. How do you feel inside? Not having dealt with emotions, not being able to really connect the emotions to the experience that you had, um, and being able to also name the experience for what it was, to actually see it as a trauma, to see it as abuse, as sexual assault. Um, because there is the opposite narrative that has been um, talked about, and the one that's put up before everybody until recently, that men can't be raped, and if it's a woman they must have wanted it anyway, and all of these things that we talk about. So until, what I'd say, maybe the last 20 years, would you agree with me?
yeah.
Last 15 on a more accelerated, or 10, on an accelerated basis of people actually being able to go, more and more people as the generations, as the years tick by, are just being able to say, okay, yeah, this is not right. Even though I didn't realize it at the time, even though I didn't feel that way at the time, it still wasn't right. And that can be really hard to reconcile in your brain, between knowing something's right on the one hand, but still not being able to feel that it was wrong
Yeah.
on the inside, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. No. It makes total sense.
Because that was, for me, for a long time, even after I felt validated that child on child abuse was a thing, I still, because of what specifically happened, I still didn't feel like I had a right, really much of one, to say anything was all that wrong. So it was like, I definitely had this, no, it was wrong, then go, well, really? So, your mind definitely can play games with you on
Well,
that.
it can make you think all kinds of things that are not not right.
And I think
I've
for
been there.
men, these ones on the personal aspect are three of the most powerful ones, just because, one, because they are personal. They're just as close to home as you get, right? And so internal emotions, being able to name the experience, leading right into issues with sexual orientation. And this doesn't have to be necessarily thinking that you are gay, but at least having to have that conversation with yourself, I guess, should we say? People may not wonder in the long term whether they are, but um, most of the people who spoke about this said that they at least had to go through the conversation with themselves of, does this make me gay now? I've been told that, or I have heard that, and having to go through that conversation and answer it for themselves.
Well, I did go through that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like, well, uh, I like boobs.
Yeah.
I
Huh?
just gonna put. I mean, it's
It was an easy answer for
uh,
you.
it is an easy answer for me, but
I
yeah,
gotta
I mean,
imagine.
I come back to that.
Yeah, it was good for you. I gotta imagine, for the men who probably identified themselves as bi, that had to be the hardest on them, I would think, because here they're going, well, well. I mean, really, at a time when being bi is not talked about at all. Really, go
Well,
back 20 years. Was being
yeah.
bi really spoken about that much? No.
Well, I mean, they were kind of talking about it in like the 70s,
I mean,
80s,
you you kind of,
and then the whole AIDS thing blew up and it got dragged under the carpet again.
yeah. I mean, you started having some outings with the 60s, and free love and
Yeah,
everybody going
well,
around, and
yeah,
yeah.
Stonewall in Allentown in the 50s.
But it definitely, it clammed up very quickly.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it did. I mean, it got driven back underground.
yeah, I mean, we really had our 80 or early AIDS cases in the early 80s, so it was.
And that was like a tidal wave going through the gay community. I remember that. I remember
Mm-hmm.
when Ryan White got it,
Yep.
and
And
who
then it
was
was,
it?
holy shit, someone our age can get it? What the
And,
hell?
yeah, and then he went on the Donahue show,
Yeah.
and Alyssa Milano came on there and was hugging on him and kissing on him, and said, he's just a kid. He's just a
Mm-hmm.
kid. Because he was. I mean, he wasn't gay. He got through a transfusion and everything.
Right, right.
Like it made any difference if he still had it.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, But I mean, she helped break the stigma of you have to
Mm-hmm.
stay away from him because you don't. I mean, you got to stay away from the blood, yes,
Mm-hmm.
but you can still hug on him and whatever. I mean, it's not transmissible, by touching somebody.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that had been a huge concern, right? For
Yeah, for a while
huge.
they didn't know how it was
Mm-hmm.
transmitted.
Exactly. And unfortunately, in some areas, even after they knew how it was transmitted, um, myths about it still held fast because of masculinity ideas. And so that's why I say, became a big thread of heteros can't get it because it's a gay disease. And even though
Well,
this is false, it
but
was
but
a hard one to shake.
Ryan White proved you could get it. Didn't matter.
Correct, but that wasn't a big
Yeah.
narrative over in Africa.
Well, yeah, no, they still have a problem with it over there.
Yeah, I was there in 92. And so this was not at the height of the AIDS epidemic over in the eastern part, but it wasn't too far after it had really, really peaked. So Tanzania, Uganda, they have a lot of traffic, a lot of trucking. So a lot of prostitution had be passed between the people and then to the wives once they got back home. But they had the idea that they could not get it because they were heterosexual, and so it cost a lot of people lives, and whole generation that was brought up with only one parent or missing a parent because of the AIDS epidemic then that they had.
I mean, I got called gay all the way through elementary school because I thought it was fun. And that's why I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with gays now, and they never did.
Right.
But I know what they went. I know what they went through.
Mm-hmm.
I know what they go through,
Yeah,
and my heart goes out to them, and I try to help them anytime I can. I mean, I
absolutely.
have gay friends that if somebody tries to take a swing at them, I'll stand in the middle of it and
Mm-hmm.
let them hit me because I can take it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know I can take it,
Right.
and I protect my friends, no matter
Mm-hmm.
who they are, no matter who they sleep with.
Right.
I mean, I would most of my friends, I would if somebody took a shot out, I'd stand in front of them and take the bullet. And
Well,
I'm loyal to my friends.
it's awesome to have friends like you, Sean. Javi Gore, she's in South Africa, and she says many believe that having sex with a virgin could cure HIV. So you can only imagine that damage. Oh, holy
That
moly.
is wrong in
Oh, how many
the
essays
wrongest
do we
way.
have because of this? Oy, oy, oy. Ugh. Oh, wow. When I was in Kenya, there was a kid from a number of years, I think maybe 3 or 4, yeah, about 3 years prior, had come over on a university exchange program like we were, and then just never went home. And he had a Kenyan girlfriend, and by the time I left, we had heard he was going home as well, at least for an extended stay. He had found out that his girlfriend was actually a sex worker, and
Oh no.
the first round said he did not have AIDS, but of course it's like, well, I got to wait
Well,
6 months or whatever it is, and then have
yeah, you
another
have to
one done, and
keep on having follow up testing.
yeah,
If the second
so
and third come back negative, then you're pretty much okay. But if
yeah,
it
so
doesn't,
he's
then
just like, I think I'm gonna go lick my wounds at home for a while.
yeah. I mean that's a hard one. Yeah, find out that your
Uh,
girlfriend's a sex worker.
yeah, that would be a rough one. Uh, Deidre Gore's confirming it. Yeah, a lot of sexual assaults. So young. That is just ay ay ay. And Hummingbird, welcome. So glad you're here.
Yeah.
Hope you are doing well. Gypsy says, yes, Sharon, I recognize the events as wrong, tragic, criminal, but I don't feel like I would be, but I don't feel like I would if the victim was someone else. Okay. Okay. Do not know what happened to Todd. All of a sudden it was like bloop. I'm by there. And how are you feeling? I hope you are right. I hope you're doing better. I hope everything is going well for everyone. Davey says you've known many workers and they get addicted to the life. I've heard this and I really hadn't thought about it until I had seen a show with somebody who was a sex worker and said that they would never trade it for any other line of work. Now I'm assuming this person was doing some high end, off the street type of work. But also in terms of getting addicted, there's the just addicted to the life, the money and then the drugs and the money and then the drugs. But yeah, and it's hard to get out. It can be hard just to get out from, your pimp or your handler. Apparently you kicked yourself out. Well, here, I'll throw up the link if you want to come back in. Yeah, there are some wonderful, some of the nonprofits, RAIN being one of them, that have made it a mission to go out amongst the populations, dealing with the sex workers, talking with them, and at least trying to identify the underaged ones. And in this case, it's whatever the under the age of consent within that state legally is. And a lot of times it's 16 instead of 18, which is unfortunate, but I understand it's a matter of you can't save everybody right away. Oh, Anne. Our hugs go out to you. Our hugs, thoughts, prayers, love, everything. I'm going to wish you nothing but a speedy recovery. Hang on, Toad. I see you. There we go.
Toad. I've never heard that before.
I said pumpkin noodle the other day, and my friend was like, "What?" Like, what? You never called your kid a pumpkin noodle?
Apparently, I kicked myself out.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, worse things have happened to us. I'm so glad you're back.
Well,
Yeah,
you did
and
ask me
keep
why
us focused. Go
I
ahead.
started talking about it more.
Yeah.
To
Well,
get the
you're
conversation
in first.
started. I want to get a conversation started. The only way you're going to change the world is by getting enough people behind you to do it.
Yep. We were talking today. Shine the light in the dark places of our space, and a few of us we've talked. There are certain areas, just SA in general being one of them, but human trafficking being another. We're so glad that Scientology is taking on what they are. But one of our members and I was speaking about the trafficking and how much it happens in the Western world and people don't realize it, and then shining a light on the male survivors, and just another area that's just not talked about enough. And child on child is another huge one where I want to shine that light too, because these are all areas that I think have gone undernoticed, underappreciated in terms of the sheer number of people who have been affected by them. I wanted to throw it said that between 10 and 15% of all men will be sexually abused in childhood.
Yeah, but just think about all the men that have done self-harm to themselves because of all this.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I was just throwing out kind of a number, and that's from fairly recently. And when I say
You
fairly,
know what I mean by self harm, right?
mm-hmm,
The okay. Just
mm-hmm, yes, for all of you, well, you know, anything, those things that we were talking about that help you make you feel something, and we can use even Davies. I think who's threw up, but just talking about, pulling your hair and, cutting and, any of those things that were causing us pain, that we're inflicting upon ourselves voluntarily.
yeah. I mean, I used to punish myself.
And it was the only way you had to get some of that
It's the only way I
emotion
could get
out.
it. Well, it's the only way I could get emotion out at that time.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh, Anne, I'm
Uh,
so sorry. You've been infiltrated by mice. The neighbors dug up their yard. Ugh. Hopefully you'll get some, oh yeah, no worries, Lisa. We're so glad you're here. So glad you stopped in. Um, Hopefully you'll have some neighborhood cats that'll just have an absolute ball in your yard now, and I will wish that for you. When did you start, Todd? When did you start to come to the side of, okay, I got to deal with this?
flashbacks, really bad flashbacks. That's how it
Was
always starts.
Had you always had them
Mm-hmm.
and just got to a point you just said, no more, I can't do this?
Well, just hey, I got to a point where everything was clipping around, going pretty good, and then all of a sudden, I woke up one day and I just got this really vivid flashback of stuff that happened to me when I was a kid, and I was just like,
Mm,
oh, and I'm like, great, now I got that to deal with. It's
got it.
always when I'm clipping along pretty good, I'm getting ready to go do something, and then wham,
Isn't it?
and yeah, it's one. I always tell everybody, it's 2 steps forward, 3 steps back.
Yeah, it can certainly feel like that. And I know a lot of times I'm just like, I was almost feeling, how many times have I said this? I was almost on the cusp of feeling good. Something came along and just derailed me. Vroom. So, yeah. And Izzy, you're right. It can be involuntary as well. Sometimes there's just things that, ticks, if you will, that occur where we're dealing with it, dealing with anxiety, and internal trauma in a way that's not healthy for us, that does cause physical pain. I do believe that your trichotillomania, I'm not saying that very wrong, but I do believe that's hair pulling. Correct me if I am wrong, Izzy. Fancy word for compulsive hair pulling. Yes. Okay, we're good now.
50-cent word.
Woohoo! See, that would have been first grade me. If I had known that word, I'd been like, ooh, I'll spell that, right? Okay, this is 100% serious. So first grade, they give you a box of alphabets and have you spell words, right? And they said, okay, make the longest word you know. And whoever has the longest one wins, right? Well, that wasn't going to be me. And I heard the neighbor boy talking about doing Tyrannosaurus Rex. And I'm like, well, yeah. I'm like, God damn it. What's an even longer one? Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Now
Say
that's
that.
the
Say
longer one.
say that 10 times real fast.
Exactly. How do we know she spelled it right? The teacher's even if it's not okay. You guys co-winners. Oh, I was a little shit like that. Definitely, definitely. Um, there was not
Win
on
for
that
win.
page. Not on that page. Yeah, I was a little stunned to even. Oh, let me backtrack just a tad bit. On average, men waited 20 years to disclose, but nearly 30 years to actually talk / dealing with it. Talking meaning dealing, actually dealing
Yeah,
with it.
and
Where,
it's about 25 years for me.
okay, yeah. And it is close to 20, but not quite. I think it's like 28 or no, 18, something like that for women. So they're fairly similar. But it was interesting that this, I guess I just thought that, and I didn't write them down here, that's why I'm hesitating slightly, but some of the numbers of actual reporting. And I was trying to get some numbers on men, and it just, in the end, the reason I didn't end up writing them down is they were just too all over the place. And part of that is our reasoning because disclosure's taken so long, right? So we
Well,
only
90% of men won't even not with the men I've known. 90% of them wouldn't even entertain it. They just put
disclose
it
it
to the
all.
yeah, they put it in the back of their mind. Either they become hyper masculine or they retreat into themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen both happen. Usually it's the hyper masculinity.
Mm-hmm.
They want to fight everybody.
Yeah.
They're the ones, oh, there's a 100-foot cliff. Oh, I'm going to jump off of it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I never felt the need to do that. I was just like, you know, I did crazy stuff, but nothing that crazy.
Mm.
And they were jumping into a quarry that had a bunch of holes drilled like below the water line.
Oh,
So I
brother.
mean, yeah, it's really dangerous. A couple people
Yeah,
have died down there. So
I would imagine. Yeah, that can be very deadly. That's definitely the word I was going for there. Um, it was interesting. One of the things that I was reading about was talking about how when men did start dealing with the issues and did start talking about it, when they would be having flashbacks, uh, they'd be having triggers into certain situations, that a lot of times it was engaging the freeze response. And for some of the men, that was, you know, almost if not more humiliating than the fact of that they were having the flashbacks, to begin with, because here's something that's a very not innocuous situation looking from the outside in, and here you are freezing to it. And it was talking about, because of the type of trauma that is imprinted for males, and because of all the additions that are on males in terms of the stigma, that when approached with this type of event, um, especially, they say, especially if it is somebody of the opposite sex. So, I mean, in a men's situation, if it was a woman, and particularly if it was an older woman, it there's so much of an internal dialogue and conflict going on, of going, I don't know what's going on, to, am I supposed to say yes? Am I, to anything that has to do with when there's an older female and a younger boy. And we can even say younger boy, like, 7 and 14. It can be the, I don't know what's going on
mm-hmm.
dialogue, or the, okay, I know what's going on dialogue, but I don't know, should this be going on? Depending on where you fall on that spectrum with those ages.
Or
And
the time you grew up. Like I said, 70s,
yes,
80s.
yeah,
You were
absolutely.
17. You had a 21-year-old girlfriend. All the guys were patting you on the back, going, "How'd you pull that?"
Yep. And and I remember this, and I remember feeling in high school just that, how extremely unfair it was that the girls who were
Oh,
known to have had sex,
the
they were
double
just
standard.
absolute total sluts. And,
Yep.
the guys who were, sleeping, banging every chick they could, they were studs. And it just burned me. And people are like, oh, you got to be a feminist about it. I'm like, oh, feminist? You're just a jackass, It was just really, really had an issue with that. Deirdre Gore says that Jim Clemente, host of Real Crime Profile podcast, talks about the topic of delayed disclosure rates. He's a SA survivor, so the podcast he covers. Oh, so the podcast covers that quite often. Interesting. I bet that. Yeah, I'd be interested to see where he got his stats from. Yeah, that was the problem with the male survivors, is that our stats are so sketchy, and we still have, I think, a number of years to go before we've got the data and the numbers to be able to make an extrapolation. So I think the extrapolations they're making now,
Well,
I just have
they
real
say
doubts as to how accurate they'll be.
they say 1 in 8, right? 1 in 8 men have had something happen to them. I
One in
bet you. If you,
six,
I
one in
think
eight, depending on who you
it's
talk
probably
to.
closer to where the women is, like 1 in 4. Because I know a lot of people, once I start talking about it, they talked about it to me. Like, this happened to me too, man.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. You're right. The getting a man to say it is like pulling teeth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you listen to a lot of different stories as to how somebody ended up disclosing the first time. And from what I've heard and listened to most often, it has become when there's become something that has become unbearable. There's just whatever it is that is causing you that pain and that harm. It's just you cannot go on. You can't go forward on this anymore. Something has to give, and really, it's the bottom common denominator between things. And
Well,
so,
I used to think it was better for me to get out of people's lives. And, I mean, for a while there, I was just a bulldozer. I would just come in, bulldoze everybody, and leave again.
yeah, I think that a lot of us who haven't had extremely successful relationships, and I say that as from romantic to friendships, that that's definitely a narrative that we can perpetuate inside our heads. And I think the more it perpetuates, the worse off we are as being partners and friends. And it kind of gets caught in a little bit of that cycle.
Well, I know
And
when I meet somebody, I jump in too fast, so
mhm,
I'm trying not to do that.
it's a good plan. I know that I'm definitely guilty of that. I
Let's be friends
definitely,
first, and
yes,
if we
exactly.
like being friends, we'll see how it goes.
Well, let's go for the next thing then. So, yes, Deirdre, thank you for Clemente's information. I love true crime, and that he is a SA survivor. That's awesome. He's ex FBI, and he helped take down his own abuser. That is
Nice.
wonderful. And
That's getting
Davey,
even with somebody.
yeah, I tell you what, Davey talks about how Terry Crews was roasted by a lot of people when he exposed himself. It's true. And when he
Uh,
disclosed, it
uh,
was very unfortunate. And it was also partly to do with his background. He said the backlash from the Black community was
severe.
sig- significant, yes. He also said, and I will put a link in the description below, but there is a hang on, I got to get it right, because if I say it wrong, people are just going to really laugh at me. Okay, Club Shay Shay. It was on there, and Terry Crews gave an interview, and it jumped all over the place. It dealt with a lot of different things, but it was powerful. And he does talk a little bit about his abuse mainly the outfall from it, filing of a sexual assault lawsuit that other people ended up jumping on. And what he said came out of it more than anything, he said, was the amount of people who stepped out, men who stepped out and said, "Me too, me too, me too."
Well,
The same person that he filed this lawsuit about.
it's funny you
And
bring him up because after seeing him talk about it,
mhm,
that's what got me thinking about talking about it.
that's awesome. And he would be one of the first people who would be there to say, "Great, that's all I wanted." That was the reason he actually was offered a part in the replacements, or no, the Expendables, that they were going to do
Mm-hmm.
Expendables number whatever. And the studio told him, the part's yours. You have to drop your lawsuit, though, against the person who was um, part of the production company. And he said no. And
Yeah,
I
no,
said, well,
I think he played Caesar in two of them.
I didn't actually see them. I've seen ads for them, so I knew about them and I knew what they were. But
Well, it's got every action star in the 80s
yeah,
and 90s in it, so I'm gonna watch it.
yeah, absolutely. So, and I was going to, but I didn't end up having TV at the time, and then I never ended up getting it again. So it was like I just haven't gotten around to watching it. Um, but he he said, just enough was enough, and he wasn't going to say yes when he meant no, and he said no is no, and it was rather funny when they came back to him on bended knee after everybody was coming out of the woodwork. The men were saying, "Oh, he did this to me too, and he did this to me too, and he did this to me too," and they came back and were like,
Oh, we're sorry.
yeah,
Can you come
exactly.
back?
Yeah, we're just really well. He had to buy
Too
his way out of
little.
this contract.
Yeah, but too little, too late.
So they paid him back the fee he had to pay to buy himself out of the contract, plus
Well,
everything
I'm
else.
sure
But
there was a couple more tacked onto that.
oh, I'm sure there was some other interesting things. But yeah, just a real stand-up guy, because to me, and I've heard an interview or two of his before, and this one was just from a month ago. And he really takes it through a good chunk of his life and how he was reacting at that time, because he admits to everybody that, at this phase of my life, I was dealing with pride because of the NFL, being in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, I was dealing with hair trigger anger issues. And that was because of this. So I wasn't dealing with things well, this way. And he definitely brings back the humility of what it means to work yourself through life. And wonderful kudos to his wife, who has stood by him for, I think, 34 years. He said they've been together, and she's put up with a whole lot, and he's the first one to admit it. And it's something very refreshing to see somebody say, "Yeah, I've screwed up, and I've screwed up a lot in my life, and this is what I've learned from it." The one thing that he said, this struck me, and it's powerful. If you see it, if you see it on the interview, he's talking about when he's drawing that line in the sand, and he's saying to the production, to the studio, "No, I'm not going to drop the case. I'm not going to drop my harassment issue, or it was assault, actually."
Yeah, but here's the thing that most people don't think about. See, poor people go to jail. Rich people that do this, they make you sign an NDA and give you a boatload of cash, and that's where see, it's all gonna come out because Diddy's going to jail. I'm sorry, he's going to jail,
Oh, I'm sure he is.
and this is all gonna come out then, and it's gonna wreck Hollywood for a couple of years. I'm pretty sure
Oh, I think that.
because he ain't going down alone.
Oh, hell no. My I just hope that innocent people don't get wrapped into it at all.
Well,
Um,
innocent people will get wrapped up into it because that's just the way things are. I mean, that's the way. If you feel like you're being attacked, you're gonna throw out everybody. I mean, I've heard that he's gonna set up TD Jakes to get out of this. And I don't think that's gonna happen because if see, even if this didn't happen now, 50 Cent is making a documentary about Diddy and all the malfeasance that he's done because he did it
mm,
to, I think it was his wife or his girlfriend, and he wants to get even with them, and he
yeah.
wants to take him down and make sure he never ever even thinks about doing something like this again. And that's where we got to get, I guess, as a society that this, this stuff just it's got to stop.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, it's for
How
all of
many
our survivors.
generations have been ruined by this, though?
Yeah. And because intergenerational abuse is so prevalent, because it's, we repeat what we know.
Hmm.
And if you aren't dealing with the trauma, the likelihood of it happening is great. And that's definitely, another huge reason that we need to be teaching our education and shining a light on these things that haven't been looked at. And Terry Crews is a wonderful example of somebody who has drawn his line in the sand and said no. And there's others who have as well in both the music industry and the movie industry in Hollywood. And somebody said, we had the Me Too movement. It's about time we had the Men Too movement. And you did see a little bit of that kind of rode on with when the Me Too movement started, but not enough as was needed. Definitely not as enough was needed. So if they want to have a whole
Well,
separate Men Too movement, I mean, totally fine with that.
for
Yeah,
for that to
definitely
happen, there would have to be a lot of men who,
we're willing to come out.
yeah, who are willing to say this happened to me. And
And
until
then
that
wouldn't it be
happens, it's not gonna happen. Until that happens, that's not gonna happen.
and wouldn't it be wonderful if all the ones who have already come out were there for that too,
Yeah,
you know? And
these
people,
people should be celebrated. They
absolutely,
could,
100%. And if
because
there gets to be a point where, all of you, us women lending our support to you guys, where all of you guys who have spoken out before can speak up and lend your voice to the power of numbers and be able to say, yes, a million guys came forward and said, this happened to me. And, you got people from 20 years old currently to, 80 years old or whatever. And I mean, something like that would be very, very powerful. And it's just a matter, I think, of mobilizing people who have spoken out. I mean, not everyone's as outspoken as they're, going to be like on YouTube, but maybe they go and speak at their local um, church, or maybe they speak at, you know, maybe they
well,
don't do public speeches. Maybe it's just something that they're in their
look at what
personal life,
look at
that
what's
they're,
happened with Corey Feldman. He tried to come out and
Mhm.
say this happened to me, and
Yeah.
they're saying, "Oh no, it didn't happen." You know,
hmm
I
Until a
mean,
number of years later, and he's going, yeah, exactly.
and I mean Corey Haim. I really think that's what really took his life. You know,
Yeah. There's,
you just couldn't get past it.
yeah, there's definite indicators that was
Well, I
that was up
mean,
there.
these. I mean, you're talking about two of the biggest stars in the '80s. I mean, how many movies were they in together?
Oh my gosh, yeah, so many. Dodger Gore says, I think Brendan Fraser was assaulted and then blacklisted. Um,
Yeah, and then he won an Oscar, and now everybody wants to work with him.
yeah, yeah. He he said did spend a while contemplating the type of role he was going to take or would take next if he was going to work in Hollywood, and he was offered a number of things, and it wasn't until
Well, I mean,
the opportunity to
he first
play.
when he first started coming back into acting, he picked a role that you didn't even know it was him. He was like, was it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was a superhero thing, and he played like a metal man. I mean, it was only his voice; it wasn't him. And then
Mm-hmm.
and then you saw him come out and like this little project, that little project, and then he got got the role that got him the Oscar. And,
Yep.
oh my
Yep.
God, he deserved it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he's done serious roles in between his comedy work. Like
Yeah.
School Ties, he should have won an Oscar for that. It was just as good as Oh Captain, My Captain, The Poet Society. It was just as good as that movie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and he played a Jewish guy in a prep school, and he didn't tell them because he knew how they would react, but then they found out anyway,
Right.
and then he went to war against them and was like, listen, this is who I am. You liked
Mm-hmm.
me, you liked me when you thought I was Christian. Why don't you like me now?
Right.
And it made me really think about how prejudice works. Like, you
One
know,
little thing,
yeah,
right?
one little thing that they don't, the status quo doesn't like, and that's it. And I mean, I've never been like the center of attention. I've always been on like the edges of it. I mean, the only time really I was the center of attention when I was playing on stage with my bands.
Mm.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
but that was intentional.
Right. Right.
I can play, watch me play. Um, Plus, I was in a really good band, so I
Sweet.
miss it. I miss it. I miss it a lot. It's one of the things that really made me me.
I hear
And
that from a lot of musicians when it's out of their life.
well, I mean, music is it's a fickle thing. I mean, you can put it down, but it's always there. It's if
Always
you're
a
a
part of
true if
you.
yeah, if you're a true musician, you're always gonna have something laying around your house that you can plink on and make a little tune out of or whatever. I mean, every musician I know has at least three or four instruments that they don't know how to play, but they try to play them anyway, just because they're a musician and they want to make something cool. I mean, at the bottom of the day, that's all a musician is, really. Is we're just trying to make cool stuff that people will like.
Yeah. Mischief, no, you can't. They're just awful, aren't they? Just awful in
Uh,
here.
all right,
Daily politics and religion.
I think I'm gonna hop back down.
Okay, not a problem. Um, I was going to wrap things up a little bit. I've got some more work I need to do, and I want to track Jen down. If
Bye,
everyone can.
Sharon, and I'll
Bye,
be
Todd. I'll
in the
see
chat
you.
with everybody else.
Sounds great. If
All
everyone
right.
could throw up some ones for Jen, and hopefully that her mom is okay, and hopefully everything's going on okay with her. I know that she's been dealing with some pain issues as well, so
Yeah,
just
please. Yeah, when if you see her, give her a big hug for me and tell her, I hope
I
everything's
will.
okay.
I will. I will. I think
She's a good lady.
she is. She's good peeps. We like
Yeah.
her. So yeah, I'll try and track her down and see if we can figure out what's going on. But I want everyone to have a great rest of your weekend. Thank you so much for joining me here today. And I didn't get quite through as much information with some of the survivor statistics actually for the male side that I wanted to do. And since Todd and I had talked a little bit about doing maybe a male versus female comparison, that we can do a little more focused with that, then we can bring some of those back. I will definitely pull up my other video and make sure to get on that for you, get something out about the window of trauma or window of tolerance. Sorry, window of tolerance about dealing with trauma. And I will put the link to the Terry Crews interview on Club Shay Shay in the description below. There are 3 organizations listed in the description that are men's resources. So if you know anybody who is looking for some resources, these are national ones that they can try. One's in Australia, one is Canadian based, but I do believe they're in the US as well, and another one's mainly US. Yes, hugs and thoughts for Jen Marie. Izzy, thank you for coming by today. Audrey, it was wonderful to gain some of your perspective too from the African side of things. That was really interesting. Anik, thank you so much. You seem to be timed out. I'm not sure what that is, but love you, Davey. Thank you for coming by. I'm so glad that you guys were all here. Izzy, I am so happy to read this. I'm going to put this up as our last thing before we go. She says, I'm super grateful for this community. I used to be triggered the minute essay was discussed, but you guys have helped me breathe through it and keep my inner peace while tackling tough subjects. Awesome. Oh my gosh, I'm going to be in tears. That is so wonderful. I am so glad that you have the support of us and at Carol and at the Lifeboat. And now that some of these subjects are overlapping, some of our boats, some of our channels, we're seeing how much trauma is trauma. No matter what you've been through and no matter what kind of event caused that trauma, that what we end up dealing with as a person is all pretty much similar, and that you guys are able to talk about this, that you're able to even just listen to it more. Hi, Tammy. I'm so glad you lurked. We love all our lurkers. That's what I was trying to say on the Lifeboat the other day. Lurker is a term of endearment. It is. We love lurkers. So never be ashamed to be a lurker. That's a very near and dear to my heart. I can only wish this for all of us, and this is what I wish to the next round of people who end up coming by here, that they are able to find the same type of peace that you have. I can think of nothing so wonderful, because from this is healing. And as we're all supporting one another, one of the things for increasing your window of tolerance, increasing the amount of space, of area that we have, that we can successfully deal with and process trauma, is community, is connection, is support. And that's what we're developing at all these channels. And that's what we're giving each other every time that we talk about these, and every time that we share our story, and every time somebody says, hey, I'm sorry for that. I feel you. I hear you. I see you. I believe you. Because here we do. And we know what you're going through. And I can't wait for that next round of people who are on the chat and choose to participate and say, I used to not be able to handle this. And then I came here and I had all you guys supporting me. And now I can deal. And it's going to be people like you, Izzy, who are the inspiration. Don't be discouraged at all, Anne, if you feel like you have a long way to go. We all do, I think, in our own ways, with different things. I know that there are definitely some boxes that I'm still trying to work through. Haven't been able to check complete off of that list. I'm not sure exactly when I'll be able to, but we just keep plugging away, right? And I'm glad that therapy helps. I'm sure that I'm sure that if you don't have therapy, I hope that you're here, and I hope that you're coming to some of the other places that have community as well, because while not a one-on-one substitution for therapy, it is far, far better than nothing, far better than isolating yourself. Um, this connection thing really does heal, and it's powerful, very powerful. Yeah. And you don't feel like you have to take on more than you're willing to, more than you can. If you've got a lot of other things going on in other areas of your life, you don't have to attack the whole trauma at once. You deal with the pieces that you can. And it may not be dealing with trauma in a linear fashion either, then. Whether that is dealing with it in terms of linear, meaning the way things happened, or linear in order of priority of emotions that you want to address, things that need to happen. Sometimes you have to deal with what you can first. So don't ever pressure yourself to do too much more than you can. I say too much more because I don't want you to never push yourself at all, because we never grow if we don't push our boundaries a little bit, right? But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about not pushing them too much and not pushing too much too fast. Tammy, if you do, I feel that that's wonderful. Because if you do, that means you've got something to say and you've got something in your heart that you want to get out. So definitely, if you feel ready to do so, do so. I know you'll have a lot of support behind you. Yeah, and if it's affecting your life like that, absolutely. Start by doing your writing, by writing it down, by talking it out with, either a video recorder or just a regular recorder, some way of getting it out if you're not comfortable doing it with a person first, or if you feel that you really need to be able to get through it all, then be able to work through it with somebody else. Say, if your therapist. So, Anne says, I could start a channel and let you guys talk. Oh, oh. Talk in the amount that you feel comfortable, and definitely talk to at least yourself, because we can't deal with anything unless we're honest with ourselves. It's the one person you can't lie to yourself and still successfully grow. It's just impossible. And you're not going to be able to work through things unless you're being truthful with yourself. So whether it's audio or video, or whether it's just journaling, try and get it out somehow. And other people have been using painting, which I encourage, and painting, music, all of that stuff, wonderful different pieces of coping skills, ways to cope, but it's not quite the median that the others are, in terms of being able to go back and figure out what you said, how you said it, what you were feeling, over a longer period of time. So if you need to be able to look back and say, okay, where did something start, or when did I first remember this or that, you have a solid record of it. But please, any of those other different types of therapies, art therapy, I know that Todd mentioned he had been getting back into, which is fabulous. I know a lot of people have art. And so many people I've seen in here and on some of the other channels have come out and stated what their art is, and just amazed at how much talent we have just roaming around here. Anne says that you have written it down. Okay, so you've done all your writing. Bye, Tammy. We'll talk to you soon. Okay, so now it's disclosing to another person type thing, whether that's one person or whether that's to the group. It's totally up to you. I know you've got a lot of people who are supportive of you, and my email is always open as well. survivingtogethersass@gmail.com. Do it in bite-sized pieces. Don't expect yourself to get through it the first time you go to disclose to somebody else, if you haven't before. Because it takes a lot. And lots of us are not successful doing that the first time. It takes a couple run-ups at it, I think. And a lot of, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. So, Mischief, I'm so glad you were here. Izzy, Davy, it's so wonderful to see you guys. I am going to probably wake my friend up, and we are making pizzas for dinner. So that should be fun on some non-pizza bread. So we'll have some tomato, mushroom, and pepperoni, I think, pizzas. Don't quote me on that, though. Oh, do you guys know that they're making churro-flavored Oreos now? I have to say they're pretty damn good. Especially with vanilla ice cream, I imagine. So anyway, that was my little tidbit for the day. Yeah, I ate way too many of them. While Pilates Monday, here I come. It's definitely going to be a tough one. Izzy, you underestimate how much it takes for you to get back to baseline. Yeah. Things that we don't think are going to affect us as much, sometimes they can sure shake us for a loop, can't they? Wow. There are times when I've done shows here and I did not expect to have some of the dreams, to feel some of the feelings that I have. It can be real surprising at times. Exactly. I know, Mischief, right? All I kept thinking as I was eating them was, yeah, vanilla ice cream would be darn good with these right now. There is a reason Oreo cookie ice cream is so darn good. Can you imagine that then with churro flavored shortbread, cinnamon goodness? Yeah. Yeah. Pretty. That's all I got to say about that. Well, I wish you all a wonderful evening, rest of the weekend. Hope soon that we'll be able to show you guys an outro. So be on the lookout for that in the next few weeks. Wednesday, remember, we have coming up, Mary Jones is going to be on our show. It'll be at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And we will be talking about what is sexual assault? What counts? Where's the cutoff line between is and is not? When do you get to call yourself a victim? That's a question I struggled with for a long, long time. Mary Jones has her own story, so she's going to be talking about that. And we will assuredly be comparing notes as we grew up in a very similar time. Love all of you guys. The following day, actually, on the 5th, I am going to be on My Other's Keeper. So Kim's show I'm going to be on the 5th. I believe I'm going on about 7:30. So just about the same time as I will be on Wednesday. I will be on her channel on next Thursday. So exciting time coming up. And then I am sure, since Jen wasn't able to be here today, that if she's able to, we'll be doing a Surviving the Cracks episode then next week. on Saturday. We'll figure out what we're going to cover then. So I hope all of you guys have a great rest of your weekend. Thank you for being here. Remember, you are beautiful, you are worthy, you are strong, and you are loved. We're surviving together, never alone. Hugs and love from the bottom of my heart. Have a great one, guys. Bye.